Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the second edition of the Freestyle Friday tournament being held on chess.com. Now, it's a very exciting event. You have the players playing in a format that is the exact same as Title Tuesday, 11 rounds with 3 minutes plus 1 second increment. But of course, as you guys can see from the board on the screen, the pieces appear to be set up randomly on the back rank. So as this is Freestyle Friday and we're playing Fisher Random Chess, it is a little bit different. Now, the first game we're going to be taking a look at is a game played in the third round. We have Matthais Bluebaum, a 2600 plus very strong German grandmaster, playing the famous YouTuber and aspiring grandmaster candidate Levy Rozman. So Levy and Matthais are both on 2 out of 2, and let's jump right into the action. So in this game, Matthais with the white pieces opens with the move c4 here, and this is a move that is actually a little bit surprising, and you might want to pay some attention because you aren't really looking very closely here. Immediately, if black plays a quiet move like pawn to a5, for example, after queen takes h7, you have already hung a pawn on move number 1, and you're in a lot of trouble. So you have to be very careful when you play Fisher Random. The first thing you should always look at is see if all of your pawns are guarded. Now, if all of your pawns are guarded, after that, you generally want to look at how to take a bit of space in the center. So with c4, Matthais tries to take a little bit of space, but he also creates the instant threat towards the pawn on h7. So Levy plays move knight to g6. He doesn't want to hang the pawn. He also avoids the classic mistake of trying to castle the king on move 1. I did a recap of the first edition of Freestyle Friday last week, and in that edition, Minlay actually castled on move number 1 against me, and I thought it was a big mistake. So if you haven't seen that recap, take a look at it in case you're wondering why castling on move number 1 is simply a bad decision. So we get knight g6. Now the move b4 is played by Bluebaum. He has the open diagonal for the queen as well as the long diagonal for the bishop on a1. Levy plays b5. We get the move pawn to c5, and here Levy plays move e5. Now this is a move that I really like here, but this also already highlights why Fisher Random Chess is so difficult, because we're on move number 2, and as you can tell, Levy is already down the equivalent of 1 pawn. The computer thinks this is +1 for white, and so as such, it's very, very tricky, and you can blunder immediately, which shows the importance of theory in modern day chess, but it also shows simply how bad humans are at using their brain on their own when they can't memorize variations. And this is also why Magnus, Carlsen, the 5-time world champion, is such a fan of this format, because you simply play with your human brain, even in 2025. So we get c5, e5 played by Levy here. He's trying to slam the door shut on this diagonal. Knight guards the pawn, rook guards the pawn, and eventually he might even want to build a big black center. We get e3 from Bluebaum. Here we get d6 being played, and now knight b3. Levy decides to castle his king here. At this point, this makes a lot of sense because black is struggling to develop in this situation. But additionally, when you castle, one of the big drawbacks of castling on move number 1 is your opponent can try to castle the other way. But in this situation, white has already pushed the c and b pawns up the board. So trying to play something like bishop c2 and castle the queen side, it is possible, but very quickly you're going to walk into a lot of threats on the king side or queen side, and your king will be under attack. So we get knight g3. Levy plays d5 here, and this is a move the computer thinks is an epic mistake from Levy. Levy is showing a little bit of a lack of understanding when he plays this move. Frankly, I don't think it's a bad move from a human perspective, but what d5 does is you close the diagonal on the bishop. Now, any of you guys who have played great games like Call of Duty or Apex or Fortnite, you're well aware of how the bishops are like the operators, or the ops as we call them in those games. But when you push the pawn to d5, you simply close the diagonal for the bishop here. This bishop is very, very passive with the pawn in the way, and now the op can't scope anything. So after d5, we got to move castles. Levy plays knight ce7, and here we got to move f4. Now at this point, Bluebaum is playing a perfect game so far. He's trying to force open this long diagonal for his op. He also now wants to go f5 or f6 here to attack on the f file, and Levy's in a lot of trouble because of the bad bishop on a8. So Levy plays knight c6. Now we get the move f5 being played here. Computer actually wants the nasty move knight to h5 here, lining up some big threats on the diagonal, or even the very cheeky move bishop to g4, activating the light square b and trying to hit the rook on d7. Or hit the rook on e8 via the d7 square. So we got the move f5. Levy plays move knight to h8. And now we have the move a3 being played. Now a3 is a quiet move. It's not the only move, but again, we are humans, and unlike computers, we can't just hang material and laugh it all off like it's nothing. And the computer wants rook f3 here with the idea that black grabs the pawn here. You go knight h5 and rook g3, and white is winning the game. But us mere humans, we're worried about material. We have emotions and feelings, so a3 is played to guard the pawn. Levy goes f6 here, and now we get to move e4. Levy plays knight to e7, and now we get to move d4. Now all these moves by Bluebaum are perfect, and it's looking really dire for Levy, like he's going to get blown off the board, simply because let's take a look at the piece count. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 of Levy's 8 pieces here are on the first rank. They're underdeveloped in this situation, and white has a great rook on open file. The bishops are going to open up, and white is just much better. In fact, computer thinks white is winning. So we get the move knight to f7. Bluebaum takes on e5. Levy plays knight takes, and now we get the move bishop takes knight. Levy recaptures, and here we get the move pawn takes pawn. Now this move is a severe mistake from Bluebaum here for a couple of reasons. First of all, when Bluebaum has traded the bishop for the knight, he's made a little bit of a concession. He's given Levy the bishop pair. Black has the 2 bishops here, and in the long run, if you can get these bishops active, they are going to have great diagonals to scope towards the white pieces. Secondarily, after pawn takes pawn and knight takes pawn is played, now this diagonal is completely open. The bishop can come into the board, and already here white still has an advantage, but you will have to be extremely precise to prove that advantage and emerge victorious. So we got the move knight to a5. Now Bluebaum here is his hope is to go c6 and slam the door shut on this bishop forever, but this move is just a little bit slow. Now here we get to move pawn to c6 from Levy. This move isn't best, but it's a very understandable move. You attack the knight on a5 here, and when white goes back to b3, now you can long-term try to activate this light square b via b7 and c8. So we got bishop h4. Bluebaum plays knight d2, we get a5, and now we have the move knight d to e4. Now here Bluebaum is trying to create the classic connect 4 as well as a bastion with the knight on d6 to harass the rook on e8. We got pawn takes pawn, Levy goes queen a7, and now we get the move knight d6. Levy plays rook to e7 here, keeping an eye on his pawn on e5, doesn't want to hang that. We get to move bishop b3, and now Levy plays queen a3. Now here Bluebaum plays the move bishop takes knight, and this is another big mistake after Bluebaum has recovered his advantage to the point where he should be winning. The computer wants Bluebaum to be a computer. Do not be greedy here. Play for activity. Now we've looked at a lot of computer games in the past, like Stockfish, Alpha Zero, and Leela. They will sacrifice material for activity, and this is an example where if white sacks the pawn with f6 after bishop takes pawn and a move like knight g to e4, you have a dead bishop in the corner here. This bishop is going nowhere. White has these knights in the center of the board. You have an active bishop, active rook. All of white's pieces have perfect harmony. They're in the game, and black has many pieces that are simply not in the game. So we get the move bishop takes knight. Now Levy recaptures, and here Bluebaum plays move knight b5. White is up a pawn here, but after queen to a6 and knight d6, now Levy plays move e4, and even though white still remains better, the bishops are starting to come to life a little bit. Black has these 2 pawns in the center of the board, and it's not as simple as it should be. So we got the move queen to a1. Now this is another bad move from Bluebaum because Levy plays the move queen to d3, and now we get the move queen d1. Now of course Bluebaum again should have played the move f6, and if bishop takes pawn, now Bluebaum could sack the rook with the rook takes bishop. If you take with the rook, you lose this bishop, and after rook f8, let's just say queen a1, white has 2 knights for a tower and should win the game. Now if black plays pawn takes rook, here you use the other knight, knight g to f5, and let's just say rook d7 here. White can play a move like rook to e3, attacking the queen. You have rook g3 here, and with this very passive bishop, these knights that are active, white should be winning. So we get the move queen to d1. Levy plays queen c3, we got queen to g4, and this is the start of the end for Bluebaum and the beginning of a huge turnaround and a classic victory for Levy. So we get the move bishop to f6. Now in this position, queen takes b4 would have been the best move. Remember, you have to look at the time. They are playing a blitz game. They don't have all the time in the world here, but queen takes b4 would be very good because after queen takes bishop, you take the pawn, checking the king, and after white blocks, you take the knight, and now you simply have 1 extra pawn in the middle of the board. So we get bishop f6. Here Bluebaum plays knight h5, and now Levy correctly captures the pawn on b4. Perhaps Bluebaum did not see that the pawn was hanging, but at any rate it keeps going. We got takes. Now Bluebaum plays rook c1, trying to guard the pawn on c5, and Levy plays queen d4. We get king to h1, and now we have the great move bishop to c6, blockading the pawn. The white pawn can no longer move up the board, and here Levy is a big black center. You can try to push the p in the middle, and you should be much better. So we get rook b1. Levy plays h6 here. He does not want to get ice skater checkmated on the back rank like Magnus Carlsen did in this tournament, and here we have queen g3. Now we get queen takes pawn being played, and at this point it's all but over. After takes, we get rook c1, queen takes knight, and here Bluebaum not only has he hung the pawn on c5, now he's hung the knight on d6. Levy is an extra bishop and a pawn, and this is a disaster for Bluebaum. He's taken a position which he was winning out of the opening, winning in the middle game, and he's turned it into a big loss against the aspiring grandmaster. So after queen takes knight, we got queen h4. Levy plays e3 here. Levy understanding that at this point with an extra bishop, you just need to push your p. We get queen d4, e2. We have rook to e1, and now Levy plays rook takes f5. We have pawn to h3 being played. Levy goes queen to f6 here. Many ways to win, but one of the most important things is when you have extra material, in this case an extra bishop and many pawns, just get the heavy forces off the board. If you can get the queens off the board, all roads lead to Rome. So we get queen d3, rook f1, takes. Levy goes queen e6, and even though you'll see the bar has gone down from +6 or +7 to +5 or -5, I should say, because it's for black, you have an extra bishop and a pawn. One set of rooks are off the board, and now white will have no threats, and there are no ghosts to be seen. We get queen d4, bishop e8, queen f2, rook f7, queen g1, takes, d4 played, queen d3, Levy goes queen e3 here, check, bishop f7, check, king h7, check, bishop g6, queen d5, and now Levy plays d3, escorting the d-pawn up the board alongside the queen. We get h4, d2, h5, Levy goes bishop to e4, we get queen d8, and now we have the move queen to h3. The last nice little touch here, Levy spots a very basic two-move checkmate pattern. White cannot take the queen due to the bishop pinning the pawn, and after king g1 and queen takes g2, the game ends with a resounding victory for Levy Rozman. So Levy wins in the third round, moves to 3-out-3. He would have a big win in the fourth round against Enjal. I believe that is Aram Hakopian, who he played from Armenia, another 2600 plus GM. Levy would win that game before sort of tailing off and losing a couple of games and moving back into the middle of the pack. Nonetheless, great win for Levy, showing that in these individual games, in blitz, these things can happen, and Levy always has the potential to play at a very high level given the right circumstances. So Levy wins this game, and now we're going to move to an El Clasico matchup that occurred in the 9th round of this tournament. So in the 9th round, and for a second Freestyle Friday in a row, actually we played in both events now, we get the El Clasico matchup. We have yours truly, Grandmaster, 5-time US champion, Hikaru Nakamura, world rank number 2, playing against the 5-time world champion, Magnus Carlsen. Now, going to this matchup, Magnus was on 8 points out of 8, a perfect score. I was on 7 points out of 8. I lost the game to Min Lei, and in this situation with 1 point less than Magnus, I need to go all in and try to beat him if I can. So I have the white pieces here, as I said with the first game. First thing you look at are all the pawns guarded. Now here, queen guards these two, rook guards this one, king guards these pawns, bishop guards this, knight guards this. So all the pawns are guarded from the get-go, which means then you look towards the center of the board. So then you look at the structure of the pawns in the center, and the third thing that I think you always need to look at are the B's. You need to see where your B's are on the position and where the honey lies. Now, if I were to play a move like, let's just say e3, for example, very quickly after a move like e3 and b6, just to illustrate the point here, it's going to be very hard to activate this light square b because the queen on a8 pins the pawn. Additionally, my bishop on g1 isn't great. Maybe I go h3 and bishop h2 to develop it, but once you look at the pawn structure and whether anything's hanging, the third thing that's probably the most important thing is how to activate your bishops. It's the easiest piece to misplace and end up with simply a bad position from the get-go. So we get the move g3. Played by me, I open up the diagonal, and here Magnus plays g6. Now I go f4, opening up both of the diagonals for the two Bs, and Magnus plays f5. Now here I play the move e4, and this is a move that was very committal by me. I wasn't sure if this was a good move, but when I played the move e4, I was somewhat worried that when Magnus played the move b5, I could end up in a situation where the pawn is pinned and this bishop is back. But what I realize is at the end of the day, remember the basics. I'm getting the big white center here. Eventually, I can try to bring the bishop into the game. And because I have a bit more of the center control here with these two pawns, it shouldn't be that bad. And most importantly, you don't want to fall prey to the classic Magnus effect. So I play d3. Magnus plays c5 here. For a split second during the game, I thought about taking the pawn. I thought Magnus had made a huge blunder. But if I take the pawn, after rook takes c5, it's uh-oh spaghetti-o. I blundered a bishop on move number 5, and I would simply never live this down. So I go knight bd2 here, guarding the pawn on e4, keeping an eye on the c4 square as well, and Magnus plays d6. Now I go bishop to f3, creating a very immediate threat here, which is that I'd love to take the pawn here and attack the queen, but here I lose my bishop. After bishop to f3, let's say black plays a6, pawn takes pawn. My knight on d2 guards this bishop on f3 here, and now I'm simply winning material. So Magnus plays move knight c6, and here I decide to take the pawn on f5. We get takes, and I go knight to e3, targeting the pawn on f5 while developing the knight, so I can eventually prepare to castle my king to the king side. We get e6, I play bishop to f2, and now Magnus plays knight d7. Now in this position, I come up with a very nice computer concept, which is to play this move bishop to h5. Now this may look like a very stupid move, because sure, I'm creating this one move threat of attacking the rook, but there's a much deeper point behind this move, which is that when Magnus plays rook to e7 here in this position, black can no longer castle the king to the king side. So after rook e7 and bishop f3 back, which is the game, I can always castle my king to the king side, but here Magnus cannot castle his king. So Magnus now is in a situation where either he has to leave the king in the middle of the board, or he has to castle his king to the queen side. So after bishop to f3, we get the move h5 being played by Magnus here, and now I play the move h3. Now I spent a lot of time here trying to figure out what to do, because I had a nice cushion on the clock. I'm up 1 minute here, and now I felt like it was a good time to use the time advantage and try to play perfect chess. Now the initial idea I had was to grab the juicer, and after rook to h7, bishop f3, rook to h2, I want to go for the wild move, castling my king to the king side here, attacking the rook. And after rook to h7 and c3, I thought maybe my king is very safe here on the king side, but I was somewhat worried that after a move like queen b8, there's knight f6 coming in here, and I don't really have a way to play in the center. Black has these very nice pawns that protect the king. If I ever go d4, let's say d4 takes, black wins the pawn in the center of the board, and I just resign. So it's very hard to open up the center of the board here due to this pawn structure without being able to play d4. So I thought for a bit, and ultimately I rejected the idea of grabbing the pawn. So instead I play the move h3. Now the idea behind this move, as we're about to see, is that I want to play for this move g4, opening up this diagonal for the dark square bishop to try and pin the rook on e7. So we get the move bishop f7 from Magnus, guarding the pawn, and now I play the move c3. Now my idea behind c3 here is simply closing the door on this bishop, also preparing down the road to play either d4 or b4 as well. So we get the move queen b8. Now I play the move g4, and at this point it's the classic allez. I'm going all in here, trying to attack Magnus's king. Magnus takes, I take back, he takes, I take, and now he plays move rook e8. Now computers are so ridiculous that they can show easy lines that are winning here, which is that after the move d5, Magnus should go for the classic meme by sacking the rook, because after bishop to h4, queen takes f4, bishop takes rook, and king takes e7 here. Not only has Magnus sacked the rook, he's played the bomb cloud with the king in the middle, and he also has a big black center to boot, and the computer thinks that black is completely winning. Now, perhaps Magnus hasn't watched enough videos on YouTube, so he doesn't know all about these memes like sacking the rook, but he would do well to follow such advice from great and illustrious players like Levy and myself. So after knight takes g4, Magnus instead plays rook e8, worrying about his material like a classic human, and now I play the move knight to e4. Now when I got this position in the game, I'm up about 45 seconds at this moment, and after d5 I spent a bunch of time looking for the KO or the knockout blow. Now one of the great things about Fisher Random is the evaluations on what you think is going on can be very different from reality. And this is a perfect example where when I was streaming this game live, I already thought around knight e4 d5, I had that je ne sais quoi. I could feel like there's something here, there's something in the position, you can feel like you should be better or winning, but as you can tell, obviously my senses were completely wrong, because I'm not even better here, let alone winning. I'm actually simply worse. So I spent a lot of time here. I spent 1 minute before playing the move knight g5 because I feel like there's something here. I try to find it in vain and I can't make it work. But ultimately I play the move knight g5 simply because it looks really cool. I've got D's knights jumping towards the center. My knights are very active, but Magnus calls my bluff and plays queen takes pawn, guarding the bishop on f7. I go bishop to e3, bishop guards the knight, Magnus plays queen f5, and now I play the move bishop e2. Now what I probably should have played in this position was castle my king to the queen side here, because now I can try to harass the queen with my knights, but I play bishop e2 instead. Magnus plays bishop to h5, and now I play the move rook to f1. Now this is the only move here, because if I play knight to h6 trying to go after the queen, there's queen takes pawn. I cannot capture the queen due to the pin, and after bishop d2, many ways for black to win, but probably cleanest is a trade, and I don't know, play knight e5, maybe this knight, something like that. Even castles and black is still better here, so I can't do that. So I go rook f1, attacking the queen. Magnus plays queen g6, and now I decide to castle my king. Now at this point, I'm down a pawn. I'm in dire straits here. You'll also notice I have this queen on a1, which is simply out of the game here. I don't have any scope on the a file. I can play queen b1, queen c2, but it's going to take me a lot of time to bring the queen into the action. So Magnus plays knight d4 here, and this is a nice shot from him. He's hoping that I'll take the knight, and after pawn takes pawn, it's the classic fossil. Rook checks the king, pawn targets the bishop. I move my king, and after d takes e3, black is just winning. And I also have this queen in the corner that's not in the game. So I play knight to f7 check here. At this point, time is starting to tick down for both of us. It's getting very tricky, and Magnus plays king c7. Now for the second or third time in the game, Magnus forgets that this is all content at the end of the day, and he misses the best move. Obviously the best move is king to e7, playing the bomb cloud, bringing the king to the center of the board, versus going king c7, and primarily it's because you keep the c file open. Now probably Magnus is worried about bishop g5. He's thinking, okay, bomb cloud, but now I'm gonna have to lose my queen here. I'm gonna have to do a Matthais gambit and give up the queen, and it can't be good. Memes aside, all jokes aside, sometimes these memes work, and sometimes you need to go for them. So Magnus could go for a Matthais gambit, sack the queen, and after takes, king d2, rook to g8 here. Black's attacking both of D's knights here, and black should be winning. Now, is this a human line? No. Would this happen? Probably, even if we had 50 minutes on the clock? Probably not. We're not 3600, but it is a really cool idea. So Magnus goes king c7 instead, and now I take the knight here, because when Magnus recaptures, you'll notice the king is in the way of the tower. There's no check or a fossil here, no oil to be discovered. So now I play knight takes bishop, since the king's not in check, and I attack the queen on g6. Now here Magnus spent 24 seconds before playing the bad move king to d6 here. After the move rook to h8, black is still better here after bishop takes d4, and this move e5, primarily because if I play the move knight takes pawn, after takes, I'm checking the king and hitting the rook, but black can slide step with the king b7, checking my king on c1 while attacking the bishop on e2 here, and now I'm just getting crushed. If I go bishop c3, there's bishop takes e2 here. The bishop targets both the rooks at the same time. If I play the move king d2, black can just take, and after king takes, there are probably 20 ways to win, but I think the cleanest is to go queen h5 check, hitting the king and the bishop at the same time while creating the 90-degree right triangle. Magnus spends 24 seconds, plays king d6, and now I'm able to go king b1, sliding my king over one move. Magnus plays rook takes knight. He doesn't want to lose the queen, and now I play the move bishop takes pawn. Now here Magnus plays rook g8. What he could have played was a move bishop g4, and after takes, there's a very nice move rook to h4, attacking both of the bishops laterally. Instead he goes for the move rook g8. Now after rook to g8, I play the move rook to g1, guarding this horse. I cannot move my horse away because I would lose the bishop in the game, but after rook g1, now you'll notice that I have an extra bishop on the board. I'm guarding my knight on g4, and barring some huge catastrophe, I should win the game. Now Magnus plays move queen to f5 here. This is a bad move in this position. I play the move knight to h6, not the best move, by the way. Computer wants the very obvious human move a4 to bring the queen into the action, and it should be winning, but instead I play the move knight h6. Now, one thing we spoke about with Magnus is I think he's on vacation still. He recently got married. I think he's gone on a long honeymoon. He's probably not in Norway at the moment. So because of that, he seems to be on a dial-up internet connection. He lost a couple of games in Titled Tuesday due to this. He loses on time here as well. In this case, it's not so much about the time because he is losing on the board as well. But Magnus should probably invest some money in proper internet, no matter where he is in the world, because it is 2025 and dial-up is so 1999. That being said, I get a big win here. I move to 8 points out of 9. I move into shared first place. You'll also notice another very important thing about this game as well, which is that when you play the game of chess, or in life sometimes, you don't always need a queen. This queen never moved the entire game. My queen stayed on the square on a1 in the corner board, never came into the game. Now, I don't know how many games I've won without moving the queen or using the queen, but at the end of the day, this does make the game even more special because it's something that does not happen every day, and to do it against Magnus Carlsen is really amazing. I mean, beating Magnus Carlsen with effectively queen odds is really, really nice. It just shows how great of a chess player I am, and it's a great accomplishment to win this game. Now, in spite of winning this game and moving to 8 points out of 9 in shared first place, ultimately I would end up in third place on tiebreak. The winner would be Alexander Bornik, who for a second week in a row proved that he is the greatest true chess player in the world by crushing Magnus Carlsen again. He wins the tournament. I tied for second place with Parham Magsudoglu from Iran. We both have 9.5 points. Ultimately, he has the better tiebreak, so I get third, but still a really hype and exciting event, and I enjoyed it. A lot of unique positions, a lot of great games, and I hope you guys take up Fisher Random Chess if you haven't already. So on that note, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with more great content in the coming days. But I hope you enjoyed it and have a great rest of your day. See you soon. Bye.